Hello YouTube, I have recently looked at all the EOS Challenger junglers and what their champion pools are, and I've listed all of them, and I'm now going to be showcasing what is being played a lot, what is being played sometimes, and what is not being played whatsoever. So, first I'll explain how I did it. So I went to lolpros, went to the ladders, and I went to jungle, and then I went through each and one of these top 53 players that are challenger as jungle, and then I went to their opggs, and then I took a look at their top 7 champions, and then the amount of players that played the champion I would basically list down. Before we go into all the champions, I just want to say that some of these players do have multiple accounts in Challenger, and some of them will play identical champions to their main account as their Smurf, meaning that they will be awarding 2 points to each champion, while others will experiment, I think, by having completely separate champion pool, which might not be the very best to play in Challenger or in solo queue in general, but just for learning experiences, they decided to do it. On top of that, there are some players that are only 1 tricks or maybe 2 tricks and only have a positive win rate on 1 or 2 champions, and the last 5 to 6 times they have a negative win rate with, but they are still included, meaning that no matter what win rate the players had, if it was positive or negative or insanely high, insanely low, they was included in the list if it was in their top 7. So I listed all of them down and put them into a tier list maker that I'll be showcasing right now. So as we can see, there are no challengers as of today that are playing Amumu, Ivern, Rammus, Sejani, Pantheon, Shyvana, or Skarner as their top 7 champions. There are only 1 challenger player as of right now that have Echo in their top 7, and 1 player that has Evelyn, and 1 player that has Pantheon. So are they playable? Technically yes, but there are many other picks that are simply better. Same thing goes for Nunu, Rengar, Zac, Master Yi, Olaf, Nocturne, and Rumble. Note that Rumble is not really considered a jungler anymore, but there was a period earlier this season where Rumble was kinda meta in the jungle. And 2 players still have Rumble as their top 7, but I don't think that they're playing Rumble anymore. So I don't think Rumble is that good, nor do I think any other champions are good, maybe except for Rengar. If you are a really good Rengar player, I think you can make him work in Challenger. So I think Rengar, if you're good enough, is probably still completely fine. Then there are 3 challengers that are playing Udyr, Vi, and Elise. Udyr does not include the recent rework, so it was before the rework. We will see if I make an updated version how the reworked Udyr will be. Maybe more challenger players will play the reworked Udyr, but as of right now, only 3 players were playing it before he got reworked. And after he got reworked, his win rate is just incredibly low, so I don't think anyone's actually playing as of right now, but he is getting buffed in the next patch. Vi is actually being super underrated by a lot of players, both in solo queue and in competitive, so I actually think Vi is pretty decent. Elise, on the other hand, I think is pretty dog shit, so I don't recommend playing that champion. Then we have 4 to 5 challenger players who are playing Gragas, Kindred, Rek'Sai, and Talon. Gragas recently got a buff, and I think he's an okay pick to have from time to time, but I don't think he's the very best. Then we have Kindred, also in my opinion just a situational jungler, not really a jungler you can pick every single game. Then we have Rek'Sai. Rek'Sai is one of the highest win rate junglers when we're taking a look at a little bit lower elo than Challenger, but only 4 to 5 Challenger players have it in their top 7, which I was quite surprised by. But I think Rek'Sai is pretty good if you can completely dominate the early game, but there are of course champions both in the jungle and a lane that can deal with Rek'Sai really, really well. So is it the best blind pick? Probably not, but it is really strong in certain situations where you can just pretty much steamroll through the entire early game. And then we also have Talon, which I was kind of surprised that not more players were playing Talon, because Talon is probably one of the best junglers at counter jungling and invading. where I feel like in high-elo, most players know how to play around tempo and when to invade, so I'm surprised that he's not a little bit higher on the list than what he is, but I think he's also a decent pick from time to time. Then we have 6 to 10 challenger players who are playing Gwen, Kartus, Kayn, Lilia, Poppy, Kiana, Trundle, Fiddlesticks, Set, and Bel'Veth. So Gwen also previously had a few months ago a time where she was playing in the jungle, so this is kind of an outdated pick. I don't think any challenger players are playing it anymore. Then we have Kartus, which is personally a champion that I play myself. I'm surprised that not that many more players are playing it. It did get a small buff, but it was more focused on laning Kartus, so mid lane in ADC rather than jungle. And Kartus was definitely a lot stronger in the previous months and previous years and seasons than he is right now. But in my opinion, I think he's still somewhat good. But of course, you can easily exploit him by not having laners that have prio, while enemy jungler playing something that is really good at invading. And then we have Kayn. Kayn is quite flexible, and I'm surprised that not more challenger players are playing it. I'm assuming it's not because Kayn is bad, but simply because there are champions that do what Kayn does slightly better. So I think that's the sole reason why. Lilia kinda goes into phases where she's really strong and then she becomes quite weak. Right now I think she is quite weak, so I don't think maybe a few challenger players are playing it from time to time, but I don't think that many are playing it over some of the other AP picks we have. Then we have Poppy. Poppy is a really good counter pick. Is really good into Graves and Kayn and Rek'Sai and anything that has like a dash, both in the jungle, also Lee Sin actually, and can just completely destroy high mobility team comps that especially like to dive in and use their abilities where they dash aggressively, so you can just completely destroy the enemy. So I'm not surprised that she's on the list. Then we have Kiana. I'm not too surprised that Kiana is on the list because Kiana is quite strong. But the issue with Kiana is that her level 1 is extremely weak and she doesn't have that good of a clear. Kinda like Kartus. I think she's actually weaker than Kartus in terms of level 1 and also in terms of the first clear. And I feel like she can be heavily exploited, and I think most high-elo junglers are actually doing that. So I'm kind of surprised and also not surprised at the same time. But maybe the high-elo players know some special words or some special ways of clearing on Kiana that makes her feel really safe so she can get through the first clear that I'm simply not aware of. But yeah, Kiana's basically there. Then we have Trundle. Trundle is also a quite solid counter pick into pretty much all of the tank junglers. So whenever there's a tank, either jungler or basically top lane or support, then I think Trundle is really, really good as a counter pick. So I'm not surprised that he's here. Then we have Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks is rated quite highly in solo queue on different tier lists in a bit lower elos. And personally, I think he's also really, really strong. But not that many players are playing him. I'm assuming it's because support players and just in general, challenger players know how to play against the Fiddlesticks when it comes to like vision and making sure that Fiddlesticks doesn't get so huge ulti off. So yeah. And then we have Set. I am actually surprised to see this champion because I've tried to play this champion in jungle after he got changed into being able to clear. And I feel like Set is just so weak. Like, him as an assassin in jungle just doesn't really make sense to me. Of course, he's not the most played in challenger, but I'm surprised that it's still 6 to 10 that have it in their top 10. But I did also see that people did have very mixed results in terms of their win rate. So yeah, there's that. And then we have Bel'Veth. I remember that when she just got announced that LS was said that she would have a really high win rate in low elo because the champion was basically just really good at farming, and then if they got Riftel, the champion would be really broken and because of all the resets and whatnot. But from the challenger players that I saw, they seem to have a decent amount of games, not in like top 3, but like maybe from top 4 to 7, it was mostly rated as, and they had a decent win rate with it. So it seems to also be working in Challenger, despite being a so-called low elo designed champion, according to some people. And then we have 11 to 15 Challenger players that were playing Kha'Zix, Nidalee, and Jarvan. And Jarvan is just a better version of Xin Zhao. So I'm surprised that Xin Zhao and Jarvan haven't swapped places. But besides that, it makes sense. Nidalee pretty much is a better version of Elise, and that's why I'm not surprised that Nidalee is higher rated than Elise, because they're both early game oriented, they're both AP. Nidalee just seems to be better at what Elise does, except maybe for tower diving. That might be the only thing that Elise has on Nidalee. But in terms of counter jungling and 1v1 power and clear speed and whatnot, Nidalee is just superior, so I'm not surprised that she's here. And of course, challenger players know how to play early game really well and end the game quite fast, so makes sense. Kha'Zix also being rated here. There are a few of them that were one tricks, but also some players that had it as kind of like a side pick in case that their main picks were picked or banned. And am I surprised or not? I mean, I'm pretty sure that all of them are doing R-Evolve, so I'm not too surprised. And he's not really going to be a pick that will be played by everyone, so kind of makes sense. Maybe a few more players than I personally thought. I did see a few people that I didn't recognize before, and I saw that, oh, they had actually Kha'Zix in their top 7, and I actually haven't seen them play Kha'Zix before, so a little bit of surprise for me there. And then we have 16 to 20 challenger players that are playing Hecarim, Volibear, Xin Zhao, and Taliyah. Hecarim, in my opinion, right now is really, really weak, so I'd be surprised if anyone is playing Hecarim right now. But Volibear, Xin Zhao, and Taliyah kind of make sense. Xin Zhao maybe doesn't really make sense compared to being rated higher than, or being played more than Jarvan. But yeah, Volibear and Taliyah kind of make sense. I mean, Volibear is just overall quite strong, quite a decent pick. And Taliyah is just really, really strong when it comes to her new E, and the fact that she just has so much so much control with the W and the Q and E for zoning and the ulti for just pressure to go around the map. And then we have 21 to 30 challenger players who are playing Graves and Wukong. I'm not really too surprised by Graves because he is kinda like Talon, but maybe a more fun variation of Talon when it comes to being really strong level 1 compared to Talon, and then also still being really good at invading. And of course, Bo's most played champion is Graves, and I'm sure he has a huge influence as well on the amount of people that are playing Graves in Challenger Elo. And then we have Wukong. Wukong has seen a lot of presence throughout the different regions during Summer Split. And even though he got slightly nerfed, he is still really, really strong. The only kind of risky part of playing Wukong is the fact that he can't clear that well. But if you do get that first kill fairly early on, especially if you do get it in the first clear, then you are actually just good to go, and you have so much damage and so much impact when it comes to teamfights that, yeah, it makes sense that Wukong is all the way up here. And then we have 31 to 50 challengers. Actually, Diana and Lee Sin are being picked by 40 and 41 challenger players. So Diana makes a lot of sense. Since she got changed into a jungler, she was really, really strong first with the AP build, and everyone was going Proto build on it, or Rocket build, and kind of 1v9 carrying it with their mechanics. Whereas nowadays everyone's just going tank on it because of the high base stats that she has, on top of the tank items being quite a bit stronger than a lot of other items after the durability patch. So that makes sense. Also, champion I've played previously together with Graves actually. And then we have Lee Sin, which is not surprising. A lot of players like to play Lee Sin, especially in high elo. It is a high mechanical intense champion and high skill ceiling. But I must also admit I saw very, very, very big differences in terms of win rate. I think I saw anything between a 42% win rate and all the way up to a high 60, maybe a 67, 68% win rate, and anything in between. So a lot of players are playing it, but not everyone are winning with it. So if you're good with Lee Sin, he's still okay, but you need to be exceptionally good at the champion and his mechanics in order to make the champion work, because if you're simply just an average Lee Sin player, it's much better to pick a champion like Jarvan or Xin Zhao that kind of do the same thing that Lee Sin does, but just not as flashy. And then the most played champion, or the champion that most challenger players have in their top 7, are, to my surprise, Viego. Viego did see a decent amount of play throughout the summer split, and I'm sure a lot of people remember the inspired pentakill last season. But I was actually surprised that this many people would play Viego. I actually thought Viego would probably be like rated in a little bit above average, like maybe 16 to 20 challenger players were playing, but no, he's the most most players do actually play this champion. I was kind of surprised by it, and it's sadly not a champion that I'm playing personally. And he's not being played as much as he has in the past, maybe a few months ago. But it's simply because he's so flexible in the sense that he can go Kraken Slayer to destroy tanks, but he can also go Divine Sunder to be kind of tanky himself. There was also a Immortal Shield Bow build one point in time, so he's just so flexible when it comes to these builds, so that he more or less just always seems okay. So if you do put a decent amount of time into the champion, then he's pretty much just always a solid champion to play, especially if you can get those resets in teamfights. Those can be completely game-changing. So yeah, unfortunately not a champion I play. I kind of wish that I played it now, because I see this many players play it. Most of them did have also a positive win rate, so it wasn't just like everyone was playing it, but very mixed results. It was mostly people winning with the champion. But yeah, those are all the jungle champions that were played in top 7 for all the EOS Challenger players as of today. So if you enjoyed the video, remember to like, and let me know who you thought was the most played jungle champion in Challenger, because I was surprised it was Viego. I would not be surprised if it was Diana or Lee Sin, but Viego is being played quite a little bit more than both of those, so that was a surprise to me at least. And then remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And then I just want to say thank you for watching, and I hope to see you guys in my next one, or hope to see you guys on my next live stream on Twitch. See you guys.